Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, and I'm excited to be here today. I am going to talk about all kinds of psychological disorders, conditions, just differentiating if you are curious, where does ADHD fit in? Why is it a disorder? I know some people think it shouldn't be called a disorder, or it makes them feel bad about themselves. Like there's nothing wrong with me. Although, maybe there's things that are challenging, but I get curious about things like this. I wonder, what does that mean? What category does that fit into? Some people think that ADHD happens in life because of things that happened, and it's actually not the case. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The hyperactive part, if you're diagnosed with that, or if you have the combined type, that's hyperactive impulsive. Maybe, yeah, something like that. I always forget if it's impulsivity, hyperactivity, hyperactive, impulsive. But I do know with ADHD, it is hyperactivity disorder. So it is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And there are different kind of personalities. There are. We might have our own here and there. Maybe not truly, but we might act different around other people. Okay. Sometimes I just do that. Things come out of my mouth. That's my other personality. But there are personality disorders. That's what I meant to say. I just tripped up on that. So I'm just going to give you definitions on each kind of disorder that I commonly think about or know about. They're more common to know about. There are over a dozen psychological disorders, and some of them are more obscure, some are more common. ADHD, I think, is the most common. I think that's, when I looked this up a while back, it's the most common, but I will double check that before I give that information here in case you haven't seen the other episode where I talk about that. But okay, let's start with a personality disorder. ADHD is not a personality disorder, but a personality disorder is a type of mental disorder where a person's patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving are way different than what's culturally expected, what the norm is. These patterns are inflexible. They're pervasive in many situations. They just show up again and again, and they cause problems in relationships, work, other areas. So some examples of personality disorders are borderline personality disorder. I'm familiar with that one. I don't know if you've heard of BPD, but borderline personality, the name for that is because it's outside the realm of the other personality disorders. So it's outside the border. It's on the borderline. It's still a personality disorder, but it doesn't fit into the other categories. Narcissistic personality disorder, a lot of times people say that person's a narcissist. Whether they actually have that disorder or not, I don't know. Or I don't know if the people know who say that, but a lot of people can point at someone and say, that person's a narcissist. Avoidant personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. So those are some examples. There are more than that. And then a psychological disorder, is that different than a personality disorder? Actually, it's just a broad general term for any condition that affects a person's thinking, feeling, mood, behavior in a way that causes impairment, a lot of stress. And it's kind of an umbrella that includes personality disorders, includes mood disorders, anxiety disorders. And that can be like major depressive disorder or general anxiety disorder. If you have anxiety sometimes, but you don't have general anxiety disorder, then maybe you have that condition. But just like with ADHD, there are people who have similar traits, but not enough to interrupt or disrupt life. And they haven't had it their whole life. Since it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, you would have it since you were little. A few episodes ago, I learned that the symptoms can show up as early as 3, maybe because we're not doing things before we're 3, where that would really show up. But when I look at my grandchildren, with my kids, when they had my kids who have ADHD, I didn't know to look for this. I didn't know anything about ADHD. But with my grandchildren, two of them, I can see that hyperactive energy for sure before 3, but maybe that's not enough to be diagnosed with the hyperactive impulsive part of ADHD. But maybe in age 3, there's more things that need to show up besides having a lot of energy, because that could be a symptom of a lot of things. But so that even schizophrenia, OCD is a psychological disorder. It is not a personality disorder. There is a personality disorder called OCPD, and I made a few episodes about that because I was fascinated by it, because I asked my psychiatrist about OCD. If you have OCD kinds of compulsions, or it needs to be this way, or perfectionism, is that often tied to ADHD? He said more often OCPD is, the obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And I'm like, oh, what's that? What's that? And I was really curious about it. But OCD is not a personality disorder, but it is a psychological disorder. So it's kind of like when you're in school and you have the sets and subsets. I don't know if they still do that in school, but I loved that part of math where you'd make a circle, or they'd show it on the paper. They'd make a circle with cat, dog, mouse, whale, fish, whatever. There'd be all these things, and then over here you'd have the mammals, and you'd have the subset. You'd have the fish. What are fish? Are they fish? There's amphibians, reptiles. Are fish just fish? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Clearly, I don't remember everything, but I did like the subsets. That was an easy part of math for me. I like that a lot. So it's like this with these psychological disorders. A lot of them fit in the subset or the big set, and there are different kinds. Mood disorders. This is like major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder. There's 2 kinds of bipolar disorder: manic plus depressive episodes, and hypomanic. I have no idea what hypomanic is. I haven't looked into that. But there are some different mood disorders, and that's a category where the primary feature is a disturbance in your emotional state or mood. The highest feature is that depression, is that manic and depression cycle. So that is what is very prominent. These involve periods of extreme sadness, depression, and elevated mood, mania, or both. That's what the bipolar. I don't know what these other ones are. I won't even mention them because I've never heard of them. I might just go in one ear and out the other for you. But mood disorder is a subcategory of a psychological disorder, and it has a lot of, the people with this have a lot of problems with mood regulation or emotional dysregulation. And there is a component of that with ADHD, but not to the degree of somebody with one of these mood disorders. Although you can have more than one diagnosis. Like, even though my psychiatrist said OCPD comes along with with ADHD more than OCD, it doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just what's more likely, what's more common. Another disorder is classified under anxiety disorders. So there's little subset and then another subset or another category going down. So OCD is actually under anxiety disorders. It has its own category. Even though I mentioned it before as being a psychological disorder, it's not a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's not a personality disorder. It has its own category under anxiety. Anxiety is the driving factor for OCD, where OCPD, that is not the driving factor. That's not the reason you have the obsessive behaviors. Sorry, I'm wearing my Apple Watch, and I don't usually do it, and it's beeping at me. I should have turned off my notifications. At least it's not making noise, right? And I'm so new to my Apple Watch that I don't use a lot of the features, and I'm kind of like, what do I do? If I get a phone call, do I talk to this person? Because then I have to walk around like that. It's not my favorite thing. Anyway, I do like having it because I don't miss as many things. But okay, let's go back to this. So OCD. Other Okay, so the category that OCD belongs in is under anxiety disorders, but it has its own category, and there are more things in it besides OCD. The new category is, and I don't know how new, is obsessive compulsive and related disorders. And this includes body dysmorphia, which is a disorder, body dysmorphia disorder, hoarding disorder. Oh, wow, there's a lot of disorders here that I'd rather not mention because it would be hard to live with them. And they kind of, at least for me, it's like the chalk on, fingernails on the chalkboard. Just reading them, I'd rather not say them out loud. Okay. Why did they give OCD its own category? Because these disorders have a quality that the other ones don't. They involve repetitive thoughts and behaviors that are repetitive. And it's not a central feature of just anxiety, general anxiety disorder that could have like a phobia or a panic disorder. So anyway, OCD is not a mood disorder, not a personality disorder, not a neurodevelopmental disorder. It is a psychological disorder. Which is interesting because they say it is, see, this is my curious brain going right here. They say that it is classified under anxiety disorders, and they say that anxiety disorders are under it's under psychological disorders. It's not under the other. Okay. I should have saved psychological disorders for the end because then I could say, these are the ones that are just under that. But, oh, well, I have to make a picture in my brain, and I just did it the wrong way. I'm putting my knee up high. I know if you have ADHD, this is something common, and I'm sitting back. I want to put my foot up by the computer, but sorry about this. If you're watching, it's just life. It's just how I'm comfortable. So, okay, so let's go past that. Psychological conditions. What if it's not a disorder, but it's a condition? What does that mean? What's the difference? So it's basically a catch-all phrase for either conditions. It's a condition. It's either a condition that doesn't qualify as a psychological disorder, or it's used interchangeably with the word psychological disorder. So you could say ADHD is a psychological condition, or you could say depression, anxiety, postpartum depression, burnout, RSD, rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Those things are psychological conditions that aren't actually a disorder, unless you're diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, or you're diagnosed with a depression disorder, major depression disorder, MDD. So I have felt depressed before. I have had postpartum depression, never even for a full day. It always happens it always happens. I'm saying this, I'm 6 years old and I'm saying this like I'm going to have more babies. It always happens. It always happened the day after I had a baby, and it never lasted the whole day. But it was dramatic. I can't imagine living with it for a long period of time. It was just the change in my body in my mindset was so crazy. But yeah, it just was unusual. Why am I crying? I can't stop crying. I can't, why do I want the curtains to be pulled? I want everything to be dark in here, and I don't want to talk to a soul. That is not my norm. I'm usually opening the curtains in life. I go to someone's house, I want light, let there be light. But when I had this condition, the psychological condition, because the hormones were rapidly changing in my body, I got that condition. Or what do they call it before you have your period and you're moody? It happened so few times in my life, I can't even think of what it's called. But yeah, that's a condition. Your mood changes because of the hormones. Or you might go into depression. You might have a period of depression, maybe because of those hormonal swings. Or even taking medication. If you've taken prednisone before, I've taken prednisone quite a few times, more times than I can count, for my asthma or hives or reactions to essential oils. My skin is so sensitive. It's super sensitive. I'm allergic to a lot of things on my skin. And even some things that I eat, it'll come out of my skin. And so if it gets so bad that I can't get a grip on it, going on the prednisone can really mess with your moods and emotional state. I remember I was told that the first time I took it, and I thought, oh, whatever. And I was also told that you would gain weight. The first time I took it, I lost weight rapidly. Within 2 weeks, I lost probably 10 pounds at least. And it was real weight. It wasn't just water weight or anything. And I went to the doctor, and he said that never happens to anybody else. But I was doing that thing like in the hospital where, after having a baby, where I would shut my blinds. And back then we had answering machines. I didn't want to answer the phone. I'd let it go to the answering machine. And when, before it'd be like, hello, I was always so excited to talk to people. And my husband's family is not as social as my family. I mean, minus one or two people. But my mother-in-law, one time I was at my husband's parents' house, and the phone rang. This back in the landline only days. The phone rang, and she said, I can't stand answering the phone. And I thought, you've got to be kidding. I'm so excited to answer the phone. It's different now with cell phones because, well, one, we can see who's calling, but a lot of the times we get phone calls, if it's unannounced, it's spam, so it's no fun. Or it could be a doctor's appointment reminder or something like that. But usually, I don't know, my people in my life will mostly like, is it an okay time to talk? You get a heads up from someone you know. But yeah, I loved answering the phone. I'd run to the phone. I'd probably trip and fall too, but I'd run to the phone, answer the phone with excitement. Not when I was on the prednisone. I not only didn't answer the phone, but I remember wanting to make a new now we call it like a voicemail message, but make a new recording for the answering machine that said, if you're calling to offer to help me, please leave a message. If you're calling to ask me for something, hang up. Because that was my mindset. That's never my mindset in a clear, normal world. But when I was on the prednisone, even when I went on it once with my kids, I was obsessive. I think I mentioned that. I'd cry and yell and things like that, and then go to the store and just buy things because I was angry because my husband hadn't fixed a door or something. And then the words of the doctor would come into my mind of, sometimes this can cause compulsive shopping or anger or outbursts. And I thought, oh. But at first it was so real in my head that I couldn't reasonably see what was happening. It was more like, why is my life so horrible? So you can have a condition, you can have a psychological reaction to medication for sure. There are other medications you have to be really careful with, and prednisone is one of them. Strong steroids, there's probably other strong steroids, but always watch for things like that. Because if it's not your norm, even with ADHD medication, I had that happen. I tried another medication in addition to my stimulant, and I did not feel like myself. I just wanted to be on my computer designing my website, which is funny. I probably spent 2 weeks doing it, and now it's not the one that I have now because I changed the website platforms. But I would just, all day long, I'd just sit there, in my pajamas, like, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. It'd be interesting to go back and see what podcast episodes I recorded that week, or if that was a week where I could barely get myself to record one instead of two. But it just wasn't the same. I went to Hobby Lobby, walked around because I did need to get something, and everything I saw, I'm just like, none of this interests me. Like there was a total loss of interest in so much. And it wasn't to the point of a full depression, but if you see those changes in yourself, you might have a psychological condition. It might be a reaction to your medication. It might be changes in your hormones. It might be some shock or something that happened in life. Some psychological conditions or disorders are, like the neurodevelopmental, that happens when we're born. That happens because of how our brains are formed. But a lot of the other ones can happen because of what happens in life. So, just watching out for that, getting help for that if you need that. Or even just, burnout. I don't even know why they have burnout on here. Maybe that's just a loss of interest. I don't know. Maybe it's just, who knows? So, okay, so we've got that. And there are over a dozen other disorders, like an eating disorder. Anorexia, you've probably heard of anorexia. That was very much in the news in the 80s. And if you loved Karen Carpenter, the Carpenters, you know very well what happened to her. But bulimia, that's also an eating disorder. Binge eating, that's a disorder. Did you know that's a disorder? And even though you might do things that are similar to this, like binge eat sometimes, it might not qualify as a disorder. It may. You could always go to a doctor and see. But like for me, with sugar, when I eat sugar and when I don't take my ADHD medicine, when I don't take a stimulant, I can overeat sugar or just eat sugar all day long, eat way more than I need because my body keeps craving it. But when I would look into binge eating, like I'd read books from nutrition experts, and they'd have all these online programs you could join about how to stop binge eating. When I'd really read about it, I didn't have a problem like eating 3 dinners or anything like that. I just needed sugar in my body. So anyway, you can always look into them and see, is this something I'm dealing with? Is it something I'm dealing with? My goodness, I need to take this watch off. I'm getting tired of everybody beeping me. Maybe, yeah, I should pause. I don't know how to pause on here, but I'm going to try. So just one second. And that, my dear, is an example of not being able to handle distractions, feeling something on my wrist. It's helpful in life to not miss my kids' calls or texts or something. It's not helpful when I'm recording a podcast. Oh my goodness. So how is this helpful to you to know any of this? I don't know. For me, it's just feeding a part of my curious brain, because I think it doesn't really matter if ADHD is a disorder. I mean, one of the disorders is sleep-wake disorders. You could have insomnia disorder. You have chronic insomnia or narcolepsy, which is also about sleep, and restless leg syndrome. That is actually a sleep-wake disorder. I did not know that. My mom, my aunts, I think my grandma had that. Sleep apnea. That's weird that they call sleep apnea a sleep-wake disorder, because you think, at least I think that's completely body, not head. So if that's a psychological disorder, it does have to do with the brain, right? Obviously, I don't know enough about sleep apnea. And it can be managed with, CPAP machine and getting tested in a sleep center and stuff. But if you feel bad for any reason that you have a psychological disorder, don't. It's just how our brains are formed. And in some ways it makes us way more fun. I think, I mean, not to say that nobody without ADHD or that anybody without ADHD isn't fun, but sometimes that's the spice of life, that we have these brains that are a little bit different. And yeah, we have struggles. I was coming up here and had a little bit more of my chocolate smoothie, and I thought, drink a little bit more. I had a straw. I drank the rest of the drink with the straw, but the last bit I thought, no, it's not as fulfilling with the straw. I wanted to drink it like this down my shirt. Just like last second things. Yeah, 100%. Now, here's some other ones you've probably heard of. This is a category called disruptive impulse control and conduct disorders. So impulse control can be part of the hyperactive, impulsive part of ADHD. But this is problems with self-control of emotions and behavior, often violating the rights of others or violating rules. So that could be along with that impulse. So it's more than just having problems with impulses, but kleptomania, pyromania, those fit in there. That's kind of fascinating. I've heard of this one, oppositional defiant disorder. Have you heard of that? Someone who just always wants to be defiant. And these are to a degree where it is just very disruptive for this person in their life. It's very disruptive for the people around them. Yeah. Very, very fascinating. But yeah, I hope that you feel okay, that you have ADHD. It's not the prettiest name. I wish it was a cute name, especially for women. We could have a cuter name than ADHD. It might be why I have so much pink and flowers on my website. But yeah, it's not pretty. I like things that are like roll off the tongue, kind of it would be pretty in a song or a poem or something. That's not going to be pretty in a song. But don't fret if you are, that it's a psychological disorder. So is sleep-wake syndrome or sleep-wake disorder. So is sleep apnea. Does anybody feel like, oh, I feel worse about myself because I have sleep apnea? They might wish they didn't have it. They might wish they weren't so tired anymore or didn't have to go through what they do. But do they feel shame from it? Do they feel, or like my mom with her restless leg syndrome, does she think, I wish I could just do better. Like I should be able to take care of this on my own without medication. I mean, maybe some people do look for more natural needs, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying we don't need to think we need to just resolve whatever pattern we have and just get it to stop. If you have a tendency to jump up when you shouldn't jump up or whatever, you can be aware of that and you can try to slow it down, but don't feel like you're a bad person because you do that. It's just part of your person. It's just part of your body. It's really not your spirit, your being, your who you are on the inside. It's the body and brain you've been given, and you're doing the best with it you can, right? Oh, I think we are. But yeah, I am so excited to be on here today. This is actually before my trip. This is going to come out next week, and it'll be a little shorter than the last one. But I have a trip to go see my parents. They just moved to Arizona to be near two of my brothers. So I'm going to go see them there. And okay. I love Sting. I don't know if you love Sting, but I super love Sting. And it's not like I loved the Police in the 80s. I did, but it wasn't like he stood out to me that much. It was when I bought the first Sting album, and it was like, oh, his voice. So anyway, I had tickets to go see Sting and Billy Joel with my son Memorial Day weekend, and that concert got postponed because Billy Joel's going to have surgery, which I respect that. I'm not mad at him. It actually worked out better because of when my daughter has plans and I need to watch her children for a week, but it worked out better. But that got postponed a week. So I have those plane tickets, and they were non-refundable, but they were changeable. And so when my parents moved, I thought I should probably go see them. I should take that flight credit and go see them. So that's what I'm doing. Yay. Instead of going Memorial Day weekend, I'm going now. And we'll see how recording is with 4 kids in the house when the kids are here, when my daughter's traveling. It's my daughter who did the guest episode when we talked about why ADHD gets missed in daughters and children and girls, not in daughters, in girls. She's my daughter, so that's fine. Why did I miss it in my daughter? I don't know. But it's mostly not having a knowledge about it, for sure. But thank you so much for being here. As always, share this podcast with others. I would love it if our community grows, if we feel connected in some way, and we're all in this together, as they would say in High School Musical. Hopefully there's no flag or anything for that. I wasn't singing it, right? Is that trademarked? Anyway, thank you so much. I'll be back again. Bye.